Hello YouTube, this is Cassidy from the Videoclerks. I'm going to do another at-home review and employee picks. And the movie I'm going to be discussing today is the film Dead Ringers by David Cronenberg, done in 1988. And I decided to do this movie because I think it's one of his lesser known works, but one of his more important. Specifically because it's sort of a transitional piece for him. The way I see it is David Cronenberg sort of has three patterns in his career, three phases in his career. He sort of started out in horror and sci-fi, taking sort of classic 60s and 50s monster movie ideas and internalizing them into a new sort of creepy way. And then starting with Dead Ringers and going through the 90s, he kind of became more of a surrealist, sort of in David Lynch sort of fashion. And now he's doing much more traditional films with History of Violence and Eastern Promises, and kind of doing more traditional genres like gangster movies and film noir. It'll be interesting to see where he keeps going with this, if he does continue to keep going this direction. But like I said, the reason I'm going to be doing Dead Ringers, because this was a movie that was his transition from horror film, into horror and sci-fi specifically, into more of an adult themed, more of a straightforward drama, I suppose, with a Cronenberg-esque sensibility. And if you've seen his other movies like The Fly and Videodrome, then you know kind of what I'm talking about. Okay, this movie stars Jeremy Irons, and he plays a pair of twins. He plays two parts in this movie. He plays the Mantle twins, Elliot and Beverly. Elliot being the more outgoing one of the two, the more brave, I suppose, more socially graceful, and Beverly being the more shy, intellectual one of the two, who would rather just stay at home, while Elliot is more of the socialite. And they're identical twins, obviously, since Irons is playing them both. And they are both gynecologists, and considered the top of their field where they're from in Canada. And they've been with each other their entire lives, and they really sort of define themselves by who they're not as the other one. And they sort of complement each other whenever they need to. Their entire lives they've always shared everything. They've shared their success, they've shared their business, they share an apartment, and occasionally they share women by pretending to be the other one whenever it's more convenient. As for Beverly, since he's the more shy and less outgoing of the two, he sort of has Elliot butter them up with his charm and wit, and then Beverly will come in to be able to sleep with them. So that in and of itself is kind of a creepy idea, having twin gynecologists picking up their patients. And that's sort of how the movie starts. And you kind of get the idea that this is sort of a comfortable lifestyle that they've sort of gotten used to, and sort of depend on. And as the movie progresses, you see how dangerous that dependency is. Towards the first act, the beginning of the first act, they meet one woman in particular named Claire Nouveau, who is an actress. Not the actress playing Claire Nouveau, obviously, but the character is an actress, a famous film persona, and they get involved with her, and Elliot sleeps with her first, and then tells his brother that he needs to see what this is all about. So he does, and for whatever reason, and it's not explained terribly well, but he falls in love with Claire Nouveau. And he starts to, in falling in love with her, starts to realize a separation between him and his brother, because that has never been explored between them. And I think they've always sort of seen sex and relationships as being an entirely intellectual thing. You're almost like experimenting. And up to this point with Claire Neveu, Beverly starts to realize love, and once you fall in love with somebody, you sort of have to separate yourself from everybody else in your life. But that sort of separation has been so unknown to them that they a certain separation anxiety builds within their own relationship, and they're unable to function really. Towards the middle and third act, drugs starts to play heavier into the plot. Beverly, in particular, starts to pick up a pill-popping habit from Claire, who's a Hollywood actress, and they kind of slough it off as well. This is a Hollywood thing you do. Because of Beverly starts to take these pills to deal with the separation of his brother, and how that relationship is starting to strain. Of course, there's jealousy, and that plays into it, and it goes from again, not a typical drama, but it goes from more of a drama, and as the movie progresses, it starts to become more and more horrific. Beverly starts to retreat heavier into drugs. And when the first time I saw this movie, I thought that the movie kind of took a dive a little bit into the third act, because I didn't like that it just became sort of a drugs is bad kind of film. But the second time I saw it, it started to make a lot more sense to me. That the drugs wasn't just a pill popping movie about don't do drugs, but the drugs themselves are a representation of addiction, and addiction to a person and to a personality. So this is I wouldn't say this is Cronenberg's best movie. There's a lot of points in this movie that are very, very slow, and it kind of gets a little boring here and there. But I think if you're interested in his work, and if you've seen his other movies, and you want to see kind of an important step he had to take as a creative person, as a filmmaker, then Dead Ringers is definitely one you want to check out. By the time the movie's over, and you sort of have time to digest the whole story, it becomes more apparent how kind of brilliant it is. So, yeah, that's my review. I suppose if I were to give it a grade, I would give it somewhere between a B- and a B+, somewhere in the B range, depending on what mood I'm in that particular day. Like I said, it is very slow. The performance by Jeremy Irons is amazing, though. At the time, they hadn't done that cloning thing too much. Not actual cloning, but the cloning technique with cameras. You saw a little bit with like Parent Trap and kind of silly movies like that. And this was the first movie, I want to say, that used it for an actual drama where you're supposed to care about both characters. And it was done very, very well as the editing, of course, that would go into something like that. And I think it's safe to say that if this movie hadn't been made, then maybe movies like Moon or Adaptation would have not come into light quite as well as it did. So there's my recommendation, and I hope to see you guys. Keep watching our videos. I'm at 45 subscribers right now, so I'm getting close to the 50 mark. And I kind of just randomly decided before I pushed the record button that whoever is my 50th subscriber, if you want, I will do a personal review for you. You can suggest whatever movie you like. As well as any regular subscriber, you can suggest movies for me to review down in the comments, and we'll see what happens if I can find the time. Alright.